This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Thousands of Turkish troops are said to have crossed into northern Iraq to defend against what Ankara calls terrorist activities. A PKK spokesman says Kurdish fighters have already clashed with Turkish soldiers. But the Iraqi government is downplaying the scale of the assault, claiming only a couple of hundred troops have crossed the border. The international response has been swift, though polarized. The United States has given its backing to a ground assault inside Iraq, but the European Union is warning against the offensive. Lawrence Lee reports.
Turkey had been threatening this for months, but it still caught everyone by surprise. The airstrikes of Thursday had followed a pattern, but then overnight some 10,000 troops followed up, and fighting has now been reported in several locations in PKK hotspots close to the border inside northern Iraq. Turkey's foreign minister said this should be seen as a continuation of a pattern, though in truth it is bigger and therefore more provocative than previous recent raids on PKK rebels. The Turkish government has been quick to point out that it told the Americans it was going to do this, yet the official line from Washington is that this isn't good news and does represent an escalation in the fighting. Nonetheless, President Bush has already accepted that the PKK represents a common enemy to both countries, and so it's impossible to believe that Washington didn't give the go-ahead to at least a short-term military operation. So the big questions now are how long this will last and whether Turkey can really pick off PKK fighters without affecting the civilian population or engaging the legal security forces of the Kurdish Peshmerga. Turkish opinion is right behind this action at the moment, but if it goes on for weeks and weeks, the outside world may take a different view. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera in Istanbul.
Secretary General for the Arab League, Amer Musa, won't be returning to Beirut today to resume mediations to resolve the presidential void in Lebanon. This delay comes during a time of heightened political tension between the rivals, a time of fear that the duration of the crisis might be extended. Zuhair Salam reports.
The postponement fever affecting Lebanese politics seems to be contagious. The fever spread to the sphere of mediation, and the Arab League Secretary General, who was supposed to arrive in Lebanon today, Amer Musa, did not come to Beirut. Some people accredited his postponement to the most recent escalation of tension between the rivals. Others, however, view it as a timing problem. It seems the Secretary General's decision to return to Lebanon will come after reviewing the report by his assistant and office manager, Ambassador Hisham Youssef. Youssef concludes his marathon between the Lebanese officials today in preparation for the postponed visit of the bearer of the Arab mediation to resolve the presidential crisis in Lebanon. No longer limited to politics and the parliament, the crisis has spilled over into the streets and the embassies of Arab countries. These embassies have previously warned their citizens to be careful about going to Lebanon. These warnings were unexpected, but they might have been propelled by the recent conflicts and the congested political atmosphere. In particular, the so-called stone-throwing clashes, which took place at the Mazra'a boardwalk in Beirut. The incident led to the deployment of Lebanese army units to prevent further escalation. There is increasing fear that the escalation might turn into clashes between the supporters of the political rivals. They called on their followers to commit to peace and avoid exacerbating the already tense situation. In their conclusion, both the Sunni and Shiite religious authorities confirmed their prohibition of internal fighting. They expressed their commitment to the Arab initiative once the bearer of this initiative returns.
المبادرة. أهلا بكم مرة جديدة إلى نهاية الأسبوع ونعود إلى العراق أمنيا لكن من زوايا مختلفة.
2 years have passed since the blast of Al-Askari shrine in Iraq, but the picture is still the same. Piles of silver, gold, and Quranic verses etched on stones, shattered by the blast, leaving dispersed shards all over the place. Recently, the Iraqi government signed a contract with a Turkish company to rebuild one of the revered Shiite holy sites. This might seem unusual, but it mirrors the history of the Shiite shrine that has been under the protection of the Sunni city of Samarra for over 1,200 years.
يوازن واقع الحال فالمرقدان ظل لأكثر من 1200 عام في حماية مدينة سامراء السنية.
سنتان مرتا على تفجير مرقدي الإمامين في سامراء.
2 years have passed since the bombing of the two imam shrines in the city of Samarra.
العنف الطائفي من عقاله.
The incident was a pivotal point that unleashed sectarian violence. The bombing of the shrine was laden with symbolism as it attacked an Iraqi landmark that no one had ever dared to touch since the birth of Iraq.
Recently, the suspect called Yusri Fahakir Muhammad Ali Al-Tawriki, nicknamed Abu Qadama Al-Tunisi, a Tunisian citizen. This terrorist participated in the bombing of Al-Askari shrine on February 22nd of 2006.
بتوقيع الحكومة العراقية عقدا مع شركة.
The Iraqi government signed a contract with a Turkish company to rebuild the two shrines. With this, a page of history was turned in anticipation for the completion of the rebuilding process, finally bringing the chapter to a close.
As much as I am sad and as much as my heart aches by the horrific catastrophe of bombing the domes of the two Askari imams, I am also hopeful and filled with happiness for the domes and the shrines to return, standing proud once again.
According to the agreement, there are 3 phases of the rebuilding process: the cleaning, the reconstruction, and cementing of the dome, in addition to the expansion of the main square. The phase of removing the debris also entails gathering old relics dating back to the 12th century to be reused in the reconstruction of the dome. As for rebuilding the dome, it also involves gathering and reusing the silver and gold that was melted by the explosion. Rebuilding the square involves expansion as well as rebuilding the outer surroundings to return life to the market and revive the dead economy.
وللحياة التجارية التي ماتت تماما.
Two Qassam rockets were fired on Sderot this morning. They landed harmlessly in an open field and did nothing to deter participants in an unprecedented show of solidarity for the beleaguered Negev town. More than 10,000 people from the north and the center of the country traveled down to the south to do their Shabbat shopping in Sderot in an attempt to boost the spirits of the rocket-weary residents. Ilan Cohen of Modi'in, who organized the solidarity rally, said that he was thrilled by the turnout, as did Sderot Mayor Eli Moyal, who expressed gratitude for the strong show of support. Among the participants were representatives of social activist and student groups, religious communities, and sports clubs. In other news, 2 Islamic Jihad members were killed early this morning in an Israeli Air Force strike in the Gaza Strip. The IDF confirmed that an aircraft fired on a group of armed men in the area. Palestinians say the gunmen were members of the Islamic Jihad's military wing, the Al-Quds Brigades, who are positioned along the Israel-Gaza border to observe army movements. In related news, IDF soldiers arrested 10 Palestinian fugitives in several operations overnight. The detainees were transferred to security forces for interrogation. Prime Minister Ehud Olmert will hold talks with U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice next week. The previously unannounced meeting will take place in Japan during Olmert's official visit to that country. The United States is expressing increased concern over the ongoing blockade of the Gaza Strip and is pressuring Israel to reopen border crossings to allow the free flow of food and supplies. In a related development, the European Parliament in Strasbourg last night passed a resolution calling on Israel to lift the blockade blockade and cease targeted killings of terrorists. Foreign Minister Tzipi Livni last night warned that European support for Hamas will weaken the moderate elements among the Palestinians and increase terrorism. President Shimon Peres met this morning with the head of the Council of Islamic Clerics in India, Maulana Jamil Al-Yassi. The Muslim leader asked the president to take action to promote peace between Israel and the Palestinians. Peres told his guest that agreement already exists in the minds of the leaders, but the problem is putting it into writing.
بدأت في قرية بلعين في الضفة الغربية مسيرة شعبية انطلقت من وسط.
In the West Bank village of Bil'ain, a demonstration began at the mosque after Friday prayers and ended at the wall. Today marks the third anniversary of the village's grassroots movement to stop the construction of the wall. Clashes erupted between Israeli soldiers and protesters. Protesters threw stones at the soldiers, who fired tear gas bombs towards them. Dozens of Palestinians from neighboring villages participated in the demonstration, in addition to Palestinian figures, foreign nationals and Israelis. Joining us from the village of Bil'ain is Al Jazeera correspondent Shireen Abu Aqle. Shireen, the village of Bil'ain is known to have these kinds of demonstrations. In fact, demonstrations are organized every week. What is different today?
What is different today is the large number of Palestinian citizens who came to the village of Bil'ain to commemorate the third anniversary of this grassroots movement to stop the construction of the wall. Today is a special day for the residents of the village because they have sustained these demonstrations for the past 3 years. Also today, the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine commemorates its 39th anniversary. This Palestinian faction decided to commemorate this occasion in the village of Bil'ain because of the symbolic significance that this village now has for Palestinians. Today, vehicles came from different Palestinian villages and towns that have access to this village. This explains why the demonstration is very large. The demonstration started from the village's mosque immediately after the prayers and came here to this location near the wall. A large number of Israeli soldiers were waiting. The demonstration was peaceful and a number of Palestinian officials and parliament members participated. Some Arab Israeli Knesset members were also present. The Israeli soldiers used a large quantity of tear gas. Perhaps you can see some of the tear gas bombs leaking gas. We saw dozens of Palestinians suffocating from these gases. Israeli forces are trying to disperse large numbers of Palestinians using sound bombs and rubber bullets. A number of Palestinians were also injured by rubber bullets. The wall is still being constructed despite the fact that the Israeli Supreme Court ordered that the planned path of the wall in the village of Bil'ain be changed. The court's decision was not implemented until today. Palestinians also came to protest the construction of settlements. The village of Bil'ain is surrounded by 5 settlements, one of which has large-scale construction. Today, the Palestinians came to say that they will not accept the construction of the wall and settlements. The situation here is still tense. Whenever anyone tries to get closer to the wall, the Israeli soldiers launch a large number of bullets and tear gas bombs. As I said, dozens of protesters are suffering from tear gas bombs.
الصورة أصبحت واضحة تماما الآن. شكرا لك على نقل هذه الصورة من قرية بلعين، مراسلة الجزيرة شيرين أبو عقله.
Our topic today in the second part of Sijalat program is about the assassination of Hezbollah senior leader Imam Muniyah and the possibility of transforming secret warfare in Lebanon into open warfare. Professor Ahmad Asfahani, there have been hit-and-run maneuvers in the conflict between Hezbollah and Israel. Sometimes assassinations were carried out in response to an Israeli military operation or missile attack. Why was Hezbollah's Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah's verbal response so strong? One Hezbollah leader was assassinated in a secret military operation, and Israel knows that Hezbollah will respond to this operation one day. Why did Nasrallah respond so strongly? Why did he talk about open warfare and even ending the Zionist entity?
We must understand Mr. Nasrallah's speech as not only a speech about the assassination of the important and historic leader of Hezbollah, Ahmad Moghniya. The assassination took place in the context of sensitive Lebanese and Arab circumstances. We must keep in mind that Hezbollah is being attacked by some Lebanese, Arabs and international forces. The assassination comes in this context. What I'm going to say is an analysis, not a news report. It seems that Hezbollah realized from the beginning that some regional and local forces must have had a hand in the assassination. Simply, it was believed that some Arab forces had a hand in it. These hands could be Palestinian or other forces from neighboring countries.
But assassinations were always carried out by local collaborators. The Israeli Mossad rarely sends Jewish Israelis to carry out the assassinations.
But some operations were carried out by undercover Israelis.
They were commando forces.
Yes, but also we must remember that during the past few years, some terrorist operations were carried out and the terrorists were arrested. In one case, the perpetrators were Israelis carrying forged Canadian passports. We must also remember that at the time, some countries threatened to cut their ties with Israel, and so on.
You are referring to the failed assassination of Khaled Mishal.
There are many precedents. When Nasrallah responded to the assassination in his speech, he was not only addressing Israel, which assassinated Ahmad Moghniya. Israel also assassinated Abbas Musawi, Hezbollah former Secretary General, and nothing happened at the time. I think that Hezbollah's leadership understood the assassination in the context of what is presently happening in Lebanon. This explains why Nasrallah used strong language. Let me repeat what he said. He said, such operations. He did not say war like the one that happened in July 2006. He said such operations, which means secret assassinations against Israeli leaders and intelligence officers. Nasrallah is saying that the Israeli political and security agencies worldwide have become a legitimate target.
Iran ultimately emerged victorious Friday when Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Mohammad Al-Baradei, released his much-awaited report on Tehran's nuclear activities. The 11-page report defied all pressures by Western powers, who did what they could, unfairly though, to politicize Tehran's nuclear case. A report submitted by the IAEA chief to the 35-member Board of Governors announced that all outstanding questions between the UN Nuclear Agency and Iran have been cleared up according to the modality plan. Declaring Iran's nuclear drive peaceful, Al-Baradei said the 6 questions Iran and the IAEA were trying to resolve have been successfully clarified, adding his agency verifies the non-diversion of nuclear materials in Iran. He further said the agency has failed to trace any connection between Iran's purposes for material use and those claimed in some suspicious studies. Al-Baradei has also said that Iran has offered the agency access and new information on its nuclear plan. And in an interview with CNN, Al-Baradei declared that they have made progress on verification of Iran's nuclear activities.
To clarify all the remaining outstanding issues, including the most important issue, which is the scope and nature of Iran enrichment programs.
And shortly after Al-Baradei's positive report on Iran, Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council Saeed Jalili said that the IAEA, which is the sole international and expert institution for nuclear activities, has finally substantiated the authenticity of Iran's objectives. Jalili told reporters, quote, "I would like to congratulate the Iranian nation on the breakthrough which has come on the back of their resistance for their legal nuclear rights." He further said the report, which indicates a settlement of all remaining issues, will turn Iran's program into a normal case at the IAEA. Jalili then said the West used to shed doubt on Iran's peaceful nuclear program, only to deny Iranians access to nuclear technology. Jalili added Tehran's nuclear activities have left the enemy with no doubt that atomic plans in Iran are only for civilian purposes. The top nuclear negotiator continued that claims and charges targeting Iran had no foundation right from the start, arguing the documentation Tehran has for long presented was sound and fitting. Jalili then announced the start of excavations by the oil ministry in the Caspian Sea, as well as installation and inauguration of new generations of centrifuges in Natanz nuclear site in central Iran. And Iran's UN envoy Mohammad Khazai said the IAEA report showed that Iran has acted in good faith and beyond its commitments to the UN nuclear watchdog.
تعددت أوجه وأشكال الأعمال الإرهابية وأساليب تنفيذها لكنها تجتمع حول هدف.
There are many kinds of terrorist acts and many ways of carrying them out, but all of them have one common aim: to target innocent Iraqis. Aside from booby-trapped cars and explosive devices, today there is a different kind of tactic: the distribution of expired medication, after changing the packaging and printing new expiration dates. Tons of such expired medications have been captured and confiscated by the Iraqi security forces.
A person looking at this heap might wonder what it contains. In short, this is a large collection of medications which would have saved many Iraqis who needed them, that is, if they were not expired. Sick minds have worked hard to deliver these expired medications to Iraqi citizens, but an official from Ressists al-Jamhuriya, in collaboration with other parties, worked hard to stop them. They arrested 3 criminals who were prepared to kill thousands of innocent people.
On February 19th, an order came down from the government headquarters at Ressists al-Jamhuriya to go to a drug factory in Kathima on Fatah Basha Street. There were large numbers of expired medications with various expiration dates: 1984, 2003, 2006, 2007, for example. The accused individuals were 3 people who conducted their work during the night. We confiscated a large amount, about 14 to 15 truckloads. Based on the evidence we found, the medications came from Iran.
Date stamps and various pieces of equipment were used to alter the packaging of an enormous amount of medications, some of which had been expired for over 20 years. These medications could have killed many people, causing a human crisis that the Iraqi people can do without.
We were able to coordinate with operatives from the Law Enforcement Security Plan and operatives in the Kark area towards forming a united force to make the bust. This crime is considered one of the most dangerous forms of terrorism. It does not discriminate between Sunni or Shiite, Kurdish or Arab. It targets all citizens. If these medications had been distributed, they would have killed more than 1 million innocent people.
لو وصلت هذه الأدوية إلى المواطنين لقتل أكثر من 1,000,000 مواطن بريء.
It seems that this class of terrorists made a living from this unlawful business, enough to make them do without their families, who also would have taken some of the bait. People who commit such actions are not worthy of having families. This is not a new operation. It has been mentioned in the files of terrorist acts aimed at killing innocent Iraqi people. Instead of providing a remedy, they provide a poison to kill the Iraqi people, young or old. Abbas Na'am, Al-Iraqiya, Baghdad.
Kosovo declares independence from Serbia. Now many Palestinians are talking about a similar move. Will a unilateral Palestinian declaration for independence succeed? And if Kosovo, why not Palestine? Answers to these questions and more on Link TV's Mosaic Intelligence Report.
Kosovo has unilaterally declared independence from Serbia, a move cheered by some and jeered by others. This declaration, however, has been endorsed by several Western countries, including the US, England, France, and Germany. Opposing it are countries like Russia, which has been battling Chechny's independence for years, and China with its occupation of Tibet, to mention two. Watching from a distance is the Israeli government, which has thus far not recognized Kosovo and issued a statement saying only it was monitoring developments there. Commentators have said it fears the unilateral declaration by Kosovo could set a precedent with potential effects in Israel's backyard. Now that Kosovo is setting an example of forming its own independent republic, many Palestinians dissatisfied with the endless Palestinian-Israeli negotiations are talking about a similar move. If the lack of progress in peace talks with Israel continues, the Palestinians will have no option but to follow the Kosovo example, said Yasser Abd Rabbo, a senior aide to Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas.
Kosovo is no better than us. If the negotiations did not succeed, then we will be forced to do what Kosovo did and declare an independent Palestinian state.
Another top aide to Abbas, however, quickly expressed reservations. What we want is independence, not through declarations, but through an Israeli withdrawal, said Saib Ariqat, also a member of the team negotiating with Israel. Will Kosovo's declaration influence the ongoing Palestinian-Israeli peace negotiations? With the Annapolis process going nowhere, many Palestinians believe that the Kosovo president offers the Palestinian leadership a golden opportunity to seize the initiative, reset the agenda, and restore its tarnished reputation in the eyes of its own people. If Kosovo, why not Palestine, were the headlines of many Palestinian and Arab newspapers and the subject of editorials. Many, however, neglected to mention that there are some issues that are relevant to Palestine that were not present in Kosovo, including the fact that the land that would become the state of Palestine is divided into two parts, the West Bank controlled by Fatah and the Gaza Strip controlled by Hamas. Then you have the large number of Israeli settlements sprinkled throughout the West Bank, the issue of Jerusalem, and the refugees' right of return. Not to mention that the late Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat already issued a unilateral declaration of independence in Algiers in 1988. Nevertheless, and with all this complexity and differences, many Palestinians see a parallel to what happened in Kosovo and what they might do should the peace negotiations go nowhere, especially if they see that their statehood would be immediately accepted by the Arab world as well as many other countries, possibly including some EU countries. A colleague of mine covering the regular meetings between Olmert and Abbas told me that they were so uneventful, they were putting him and other members of the press to sleep. Then came Abd Rabbo's declaration and everyone had something to report on. It remains to be seen whether this buzz created by Kosovo could also awaken the Palestinian and Israeli negotiating team to inch the peace process forward. I'm Jamal Dajani for the Mosaic Intelligence Report. To learn more about this program or to send us your thoughts, visit us at linktv.org/mosaic.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.